righty. Ready for some heavy duty stuff. Very exciting. Alrighty. Excuse me. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We welcome Terrence, TJ, all the way from Melbourne, Australia, where it's very late. What time is it? It's late. Welcome, devotee. And Michael in Germany, good Woch. Madeline is with us in Florida, welcome. Eugenia is in Calgary, where it's probably still pretty cold. Simcha in Florida, where it's probably very warm. Diane in Arizona, also very warm. You know what? We say over here, we weather the weather. Let's get beyond the weather. John, North Carolina, welcome. Lynn is with us in Long Island. Rena in Colorado. And who else is joining us over here? We have on in Clubhouse. We have Adam. We have Akoy in Peru. We have Milky. We have Marlene in Miami. In Germany, we have Manuel, many. Miss Malkiel, we have with us. Who else is joining us? Clubhousers, we have Carrie, we have Ben, we have Adam, Andrea, Michael. Beautiful. Tim in Texas. We have super stuff over here. Reincarnation. The whole idea, which is exciting. Oh, thank you. Very nice. Andrew is with us in New Jersey. Mark in Santa Rosa, California. Who else is joining? Okay. Sarah in New York. Natalie, Massachusetts, whose father was an honored World War II veteran. All right, so was my father. He actually trained the troops in England. Veteran Day, and it's also, that's in the States. In Canada, it's Poppy Day. It's, oh my gosh, Remembrance Day. All right, was Friday. Yes, so we're celebrating all the veterans. Okay. Reminder, Sundays is a double portion we get from yesterday. And of course today. All right, well, let us begin. Actually, give me a moment. Let's write this down. We begin the 29th letter this letter will deal with a lot of mystical ideas, including reincarnation, including the Garden of Eden, and many other wonderful stuff. It begins with a quote from Mishlei, from the book of Proverbs, from King Solomon. Eishes chayil ateres baila. A woman of valor is the crown of her husband. Usually the metaphor of a woman, the feminine, is a recipient. But here the metaphor of the woman, the feminine, is the giver, to the masculine being the crown of her husband. And in the metaphor, this refers to the woman is the oral Torah, where the man is the written Torah. And specifically in the oral Torah, it's referring to the laws that are in the oral Torah, like in Maimonides, for example, which we learn. So the woman of valor, meaning the oral Torah, the laws are the crown of the husband, meaning the written word. Furthermore, our sages say in the Ethics of Our Fathers, Pirkei Avot, he who makes the use of the crown, so here the word crown again is being used. We had a crown meaning laws, right? The crown is the laws of the oral Torah that the woman is an expression of. The oral Torah, the crown, the law. So he who makes use of the crown, meaning the laws, will pass away from this world. In other words, they use it for self-directed purposes, for self-indulgent purposes. So the study of halacha, of Jewish law, is the crown of Torah. Furthermore, it says in the Talmud, whoever studies the crown, the halachas, is assured a share in the world to come, meaning is assured in the world to come. So the question the Alter Rebbe asks is, we need to understand why halacha, Jewish law, is metaphorically the crown, or the crown of Torah. Furthermore, why is it specifically that if you study Jewish law, that you will have a share in the world to come? How about other Torah subjects, like learning Tanya, or learning, the Chumash, scripture, or the Medrash, or the like? Why specifically this? Also, we need to understand the teachings of our sages in the Talmud, that even if one studied a single chapter in the morning of Jewish law, that you've fulfilled your obligation to study Torah. Why specifically the Jewish law, that if you study one chapter, you've fulfilled your obligation? How about all the other areas of Torah? Why isn't that sufficient to fulfill your obligation in the study of Torah? So those are a bunch of questions that we're going to leave right now. And now we're going to go off into a mystical journey with Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Arizal, who states the following. And that is, and he's speaking about every Jew over here because that's his reference point. So, and I know that here we learn with many people who are not Jewish. So what that means, I don't know. And I'm sure there's an application of it, but as you will understand, that how he's speaking about over here, that every Jewish soul has to be reincarnated many times in order to fulfill all 613 commandments of the Torah, and to fulfill them in thought, speech, and in action. So, parenthetically, by the way, now we understand that the reference point is the Jewish people, because the Jewish people have 613 commandments, where non-Jews have 7. So, right there, that distinction, and we'll see the details over here and what this means. Now, so why do they need to be reincarnated? It is because you need to complete the garments of your soul. Now, you have a soul, and the expression of that soul is in thought, speech, and action. and you need to complete it. It's incomplete if you don't have 613 commandments to fulfill. Now, that excludes in the 613 the laws that are specific for a king. Because, first of all, not everybody's going to be a king, but moreover, the king is really the heart of the people, and therefore, in a sense, incorporated in the king is all the people. So, therefore, all the people, through the king, fulfill those mitzvahs that are for the king. By parenthetically, it doesn't say over here, but certain things women are not obligated, but through the connection of the soul, that the other half of the soul, they fulfill that, and there's other spiritual ways that they fulfill those commandments. But we're going to leave that off for now. Okay? Now, why is it 613 that you need to fulfill? Is that arbitrary? 613 commandments that you need to fulfill, including those of the king, that through the king we fulfill them, but every other one we need to fulfill. The reason is because our soul, the Jewish soul that is made up of 613 powers or components. And therefore, every component of the soul needs to be fulfilled. And if it's not fulfilled, it has to come back to be reincarnated. So it will be fulfilled because it's lacking. Now, as the Zohar explains, this is understandable for any thinking person. That, if your soul, if your being is not complete, you need to come back to complete. Now, what that means and how that works is not the discussion right now. The way reincarnation works, not at this moment. But we're going to continue now with the notion that the soul needs its fulfillment. It needs it on the level of nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Those three levels. Those are the inherently limited aspect of the soul that needs to connect to the Almighty, apprehend the Almighty through the mitzvahs that we fulfilled. Right? And therefore to bring the light into the soul to have its fulfillment. Now, every time we do a mitzvah, we create a divine light that is very powerful. And even that powerful light is a ray of the light only, right? Like the ray of the sun rather than the sun. If it were to come down to us in this world, it would be too intense. So it needs to be contracted, that light. The light that we create through our engagement in a mitzvah, the 613 mitzvahs, is powerful. But it's too powerful for the soul. So it needs to be contracted. And the contraction, metaphorically, is like hair. Hair is very tenuous, is very, the sensation in hair is so limited, so contracted compared to the finger, or even, God forbid, the skull, right? Cut hair, you don't feel it. Why? Because the contraction of the metaphorically divine light to come to be reduced to a glimmer like hair, so that's nothing, right? Nevertheless, even that level of light, after that mighty contraction, the nefesh or ruach and neshama can't endure that light. The light is too good, it's too sweet, it's too powerful, it's too intense, that no created being could receive it without expiring. Without expiring in that pleasantness, that sweetness of the divine. That's how powerful it is. That sweetness, that pleasurable thirst that is being quenched by this light that we produce. So the souls cannot absorb that pleasantness, that pleasurable thirst, without leaving our limitations, which means being nullified, like a flame that becomes, you have a big bonfire, and then you have a little flame that's close by. What's going to happen? That flame that's close by will be absorbed in that bonfire, and it becomes nullified and part of the greater fire. So likewise over here, our soul is not capable of experiencing that, even though we're talking about a contracted light now that we produce through the mitzvah that we've accomplished. It's so powerful that we cannot experience it in the manner that we are without being nullified into that greater light that we've produced. So from that hair of metaphorically, folks, by the way, if you have questions, just wait for them, because now's not a time to ask any question, because that means you're not focused. You focus on your question, and let go, let's learn, and we'll come around to questions. Okay. Now, from that ray of light that is this pleasantness, this sweetness, right? That's beyond. From there, is created a garment that's contracted even further that can now garb the soul, right? In other words, it can fit the person, it can fit the soul of the person, right? That light we can derive enjoyment from without being nullified out of existence. Now, being that this garment is, so to speak, a created light, as opposed to a divine light that would nullify us. It's a created light. It's a garment, therefore, that can be worn by the soul. What is that garment? That garment is the mitzvah that we've done. Right? That's the mitzvah that we've done. That can garb the soul. And there's 613 of them that we need to garb the soul with. That's like when Moses went on the mountain and spoke with God. He was in a cloud. He ascended in the cloud. That cloud allowed the light of God to be something that he could absorb. So likewise we have, through the mitzvah that we fulfill, right? We create a garment for the soul, both through thought, speech, and action through the mitzvah, that now garbs the soul, that can be experienced. We continue in the 29th letter, speaking about reincarnation, that the soul, the Jewish soul, is made up of 613 components, and hence there are 613 mitzvahs for each component of the soul. And what is a mitzvah? A mitzvah is a light of God that becomes ultimately, through the contraction, a garment for the soul that the soul can now wear. When does that soul wear the garment? It's actually hidden away for the time to come. So there's the garment that's created, right? It's hidden away, that we don't experience it now in this world when we do the mitzvah. the pleasantness of God, the pleasurable thirst, delighting in God. This is, as in this week's Torah portion, today's learning actually. 400 worlds, 400 shekel that Abraham paid for the burial place of his wife Sarah. 400 shekel is referring, the word kesef means to long, a longing. Never satisfied, always wanting more light. So when you experience the light, you're never satisfied, you even want more. You even want more. That's the light that's hidden away through the act of the mitzvah that we do today. And there's many levels of that, many rungs of that. You know, minute radiation, the descent from level to level. And so what we have, let's put it by way of metaphor first. We have in the human being, you have a desire for something. Why do you have a desire for something? Because that thing gives you pleasure. So pleasure is the cause of a will, of a desire. Right? Again, the pleasure that you have in something is what causes you to have a desire for the thing. So if you have pleasure in an apple, you have a desire for an apple. If you have pleasure in music, you have desire for music. If you have pleasure in doing good, you have desire to do good. Why do you have a pleasure? Just because. Right? So, the inner dimension is the pleasure. The outer dimension is the will that it causes. So the light of God, right, this divine light is a pleasurable light. That light is something that we don't experience now. Right? It's too great. It's too powerful. But what that light produces is a will, a divine will of God, the supernal will of God. And what is that supernal will? Now, that supernal will is the mitzvah. That supernal will is the mitzvah. So what we have is a pleasurable light that produces a will, the will of God. The will of God, even though it's a product of pleasure, nonetheless, that will is one with God. And even when we divide between pleasure and will and the divine, we're only speaking in human terms because that's the way it is by us. In the divine level of things, it's all one. But we can't speak about it all as one because we're not one. We have components that come together. So therefore there's a distinction between pleasure, will, and my God, his divine will is one with him. Right? So now, what we have in this world is a divine will, which is the external expression of the internal cause, divine pleasure. That pleasure far exceeds any intelligence, even the divine will, it exceeds. That pleasure, right? It's like when you grasp something, it brings you a pleasure. So in the world to come, meaning in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, where the soul goes after this time here, right? You will there have the garment of the soul that will express the pleasure that the soul will experience. Here we don't experience it. Here what we have is the external expression of that, or the cause of the pleasure, which is the divine will. Here what we have is the fulfillment of the divine will. That divine will, though, creates a garment that in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, the soul will have the pleasure, right? Just like clothes bring a pleasure to a person, metaphorically, right? And fit the person, they are to the person's measure. So likewise, the soul will have the pleasure of the will that was that we fulfilled now. It will have the pleasure of that light of God, that because of the garment that we created, that we'll be able to have the pleasure of the divinity, the divine light that we create through the mitzvah in Gan Eden. And that needs to be done from a reincarnation point of view with all the mitzvahs, so that every component of the soul can have a pleasure, can have the garment that creates the capability of having pleasure of the divine light in Gan Eden. So that's it. Powerful idea. Any questions? Okay. I'm sorry I have a limited amount of time today because of some other responsibilities, but let me get to questions. Davida, does one who passes away, chas v'shalom, at a young age because they completed their mission? Possibly, could be. That's why someone passed away at a young age. That's a possibility. Not necessarily, but it could be. Okay, Norm, give me a second. Will there be reincarnation in the world to come, or in the souls resurrected? Once all the souls come, then we don't need reincarnation. Okay. Margaret Lozata, the same question once again. Since everyone comes from Hashem, why does pure evil exist? Talking about pure evil, okay, that's not today's topic. We're going to leave that for now. Okay. Lori, why does the soul receive a reward when the body made it possible? Good question. Oh, good question, Lord. So the ultimate reward will be Mashiach comes, the soul will come back into a body, and that's the ultimate, is Mashiach and not Gan Eden. And not Gan Eden. That's the ultimate. Good question. Excuse me. Hello? Come on in. I'll be up in a few moments. Left door. The left. Sorry. Yeah, so very good, Lori. So yeah, there it's a reward for the soul, and it's only a garment, it's a ray of light. Mashiach, it's not a ray of light, it's the essence of the light. Excellent. Okay. All right, folks. Norm, I invited you up, but yeah, I actually have to leave right now. We will continue our conversation. All right, we will continue our conversation. Your second question, no, I said then it won't be reincarnation. Everybody will be back. Okay, I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you. Tanya, remember, we're going to have a Parsha class tonight at 6:30. You don't want to miss it. Very interesting. Speaking about a woman of valor. We're going to speak about womanhood and other good things. And TRC tonight at 8 o'clock. And Rambam. Thank you for joining. Have a great, good day and a good